Hello, this is Ketchum's Creations down here in Pueblo, Colorado. Loving it. It's awesome weather down here and we get to work outside most of the time. It's nice. Been creating this. Had a client wanting 10-foot tall 8x8 spindle columns, and you know, after I went to school on YouTube, I figured out how to do it, but I didn't really see much of a video showing, you know, in detail of how to get this to happen from that square log to this. Super cool. So we're going to show you how to do it. Stay tuned. Okay, one thing I want to show you is the tools that you'll be using. I narrowed it down to, you know, these few things, or quite a few things, to make that happen. Circular saw, you saw that. A lot of people have that, that's for sure. I put a ripping blade on that to rip through that material. You definitely don't want a fine multi-tooth blade on there, because it'll just heat up and, you know, you'll just kind of hose it. A power plane. This is nice to take it down a little bit closer to being that end result of that cylinder that we're trying to achieve. The sander, and I got 60 grit on here, really aggressive. You know, your end result, you know, you want the whole thing to be sanded in whatever you sand that column with, because it might look different from the flat original side to the column that you carved out. And right angle grinder, this has got 24 grit on it and it's really aggressive. I bought one of these backer plates that you can put on the back of it and you can really get in tight. It's nice. Right angle grinder. Couple hand saws. I have this set which has you know, just a block of wood clamps for a gauge. That's my 1/2 inch, a little bit over 1/2 of an inch depth gauge. So now I can saw this around, and I'll show you that in one of the scenes. But it won't go any deeper. It's really nice. It's heavy, that's for sure. Just a regular saw just to get things started. You'll need a pull saw, Japanese pull saw. This is for cutting the paper, transferring the rings around this column down into the log. And I'll show you what this does. Hello, we're back. Thanks for checking back in. Now I want to tell you how to, or suggest how to get these edges off of this log to make it more of a cylinder. So now I'm going to show you here how to find equal sides, so an octagon, so you can lay it out onto your stock and use a circular saw to cut all the waste off, or most of the waste off, and then a power planer will take it down the rest of the way, right before you would use the right angle grinder to shape it into a cylinder. But let's start with this. I have an 8-inch square stock of wood. So now I draw my X across here, and what I'm doing here is making it so I have 8 equal sides on here. So I'm drawing an octagon here. Find the center, take a compass, put it on one corner in the center, and draw your line. No biggie, I'm just trying to get you on the right track here. So now I take a pencil and I line these marks up right here. So that will be the flat side of this cut, which goes right to that 4-inch radius. So I mark 4 inches here. I find the center, my radius, I draw my circle. That's what my finished log is going to max out at. Yeah, there you go, you get the idea. So now, after I cut this off with my circular saw, I'll have that left over. And then I'll address that with a different tool. That'll be the power planer. This cut right here will be a circular saw, cutting this off. Power plane will cut this off. Then the grinder, and I'll shave the log and it'll make it a circle. And yeah, so I'll explain this a little bit more on the next section, but I wanted to get you to understand how to make an octagon. So what we did here was we laid it, our lines out in increments of 4 inches. We put this on a 15-degree angle and we started it, and we made it all the way down the paper, one line after another, just so you don't have to move this once it's on the log. You have enough paper to go around that log all the way to end. You're going to tape this thing on the log, tape it, and cut through it to transfer these lines where these grooves are right here. That's the whole idea of this paper right here. If you could do that on here without the paper, that would be awesome, but it's really tough. Hello, we're back outside once again. These small leg ends, like lathe even, you know, because once it's on here, I can spin it. You know, my wife, my father-in-law, they can spin it while I work on it, which that helps a lot in the future steps of what it's going to take to make these make the spindle here. What I did here was bring that camera over here, get a little bit of a close-up so you can kind of see. You know, I made an L-shaped. These are 2 by, what are they? 2 by 10s, little 45 brace, and then I have a pipe here that, man, it just, if you keep all your stock and your scrap like a damn hoarder, you have all kinds of stuff to work with. So I just cut an angle on this. This pipe fits really nice and tight in here, and I can slide it through into this stock here. So bring it around a little farther and you'll notice that I found my center point. I drilled my hole, full of sawdust in there. So now that hole is really close of fitting this pipe here. So I'm gonna shove that through there and it's gonna go right into that and it's gonna hold that guy in place. So stand back a second and I'll show you how to do that by yourself. Just like that. Okay, I want to show you this real quick before we go out here and start drawing lines on this big piece of wood out here. This right here, this is my layout. I have a base of 12 inches to where I don't mess with anything on it. You know, that's my starting point, 12 inches. I have that 12 inches off the bottom and 12 inches off the top. And there's nice space here for, you know, you to cut it off if there's unevenness in the ground. Okay, so I got 12 inches, and then this nice little chamfer or big chamfer that I have on here is 2 inches where it starts. So what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you how I'm going to be laying out all these lines, because they will look confusing out there. And once you do 6 of them, you start to just see what needs to happen. So like I'm saying, 12 inches, I mark a line all the way around the column. That way I know I'm not going to go past that. That's my stopping point of everything. So, and then I mark a 2-inch line, and that's the start of my radius that goes up into that stopping point. And then I mark up here at 36 is in between these 2 rings, 3 inches under and 3 inches above. Then I come here at the top, 12 inches down, 14 inches down is my other mark, 24 inches down, 3 inches is my ring. All right, stay tuned and we'll lay it out on the log. All right, let's do this layout right here. So we got, like I said, 12 inches is untouched, 14 inches, start of the radius. I come up here to 36, make a mark, drop down 3, 1, 2, 3, 33, go up 3, 1, 2, 3. There's my rings. Down 14, and then 24, and then 3 inches. Ring. This is the, what would it be, that? The slope of the chamfer. Okay, so now I mark all around, and as soon as you get back, I'll be done with this. All right, perfect timing. Now we're going to lay some lines on this to use the circular saw to cut all this waste off of here, so we can get this into looking more like the spindle column that we want. Okay, so come a little closer here and check this out now. So here, I got my tri-squares, and I'm gonna transfer some lines up and down on this. But what we're gonna do is, we need to make this line right here on this piece of wood. We need to make this one. You get the point. That one, that one, that one. So all of these, so when we spin this log around, we can put our circular saw down to it and have a line that we can cut off. You can also use a guide. You can put a guide on your circular saw bed, clamp down, or they sell guides for it and you can just rip that stuff right off. But I like to have a line. I just eyeball. This is handmade. It can be a little bit of, you know, waviness into it. That's what makes the beauty of it. So right here, you're gonna measure from that point to this point. Whatever that is, I'm just gonna go ahead and, as you can see, I always cut the tape measure to get the right. So it's looking like 2 inches and 3/8. So I mark my tri-square at 2 inches and 3/8. It should be on there. It's pretty close. And then I have another one set up for the chamfer. like that on every side. So come back here in just a minute and I'll be ready for the next. Okay, we are back again at it, and now we're ready to cut. All that jibber jabber that we went through got us up to this point right here. This next step, I'm telling you what, if you're not comfortable with a circular saw in your hand, you're probably not going to feel too comfortable with this, which would make the process a lot more, because you would have to, you know, just nibble at this to get it down to that 8-inch round cylinder. Okay, so what I did here, come a little closer, you're in the sun, there you go. Don't try this at home. Nobody ever should do this. For some reason, I don't think right sometimes. So I held that guard up. I'm not showing you how to do this because I don't even do this. This is wrong. So, but if you're going to choose to do this, just be careful, okay? So what I do here is I put it on a 45. I unlock the depth height, and that stays free the whole time I'm cutting. So I set it on top of the product on the line. I turn the saw on and I plunge cut this thing, and then I start to rip all the way down to the end. I get to the end, I let it just die or stop, unwind, and then I can relieve and pull it out. Once again, I have my layouts. So this 45 is going to be cut out of this chamfer, which you saw, the small chamfer that goes up for the 2 inches and then it kicks up to that point. We'll cut our circular saw right down to the tip of that. We do not want to go past that, because then you start to go into the radius, which then you'll have a saw mark and it'll look like you did it with a saw. So we're going to start out here and we're going to drop all the way down into it and stop there. We're going to do all 4 of those, which those cut through in one cut. This out here, my blade doesn't go, I have to cut this 4 times. Well, I'm sorry, I have to cut this side here twice, this side and this side. But the other side is only about that much material that I have to remove, and the first cut is about that much material. So let me do a demonstration of how I get one of these lines cut in that plunge technique, which is wrong. You don't want to do this. Do not practice this anywhere ever. This is for crazy people only. Good example right here. I just told you not to do that, and look there, I did that. Now we're gonna see that, and I'll show you that throughout it'll be there always. So now I do that a bunch of times all the way around, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, it's super important, earplugs, eye protection on this one. This blade, it shreds things. So what I'm trying to do is I feather into it. I don't try to make it all in one pass or so, you know, I'm nibbling at it. And I have to change the direction of the planer to get it to remove the material, because some of these little spots like this right here, you know, it will get caught up on this part right here. See, because we're going to try to get it clear down to this part right here all the way down. So if you got any questions, just tap on my shoulder and let me know, and I'll stop and I'll answer all your questions. But let me get started. Earmuffs go on, music comes on. Yeah, this next step is with the right angle grinder, and this is more of the, freehand. A lot of the other things were freehand also, but this right here, you're putting the shape to it. Like this right here, see all these irregular things, man. You're gonna make this nice. All these right here, you're gonna make it nice and round. Okay, once again, I think this was like 24 grit paper on this, a disc on this right angle grinder. And what I'm gonna do here is, you see my stance here is about as far as I can reach. I don't want to really go any more than that because I'm gonna have to take a step, and you see what happens. You want to just get as much as you can reach, and then take a step over here, and then focus on all of this over here. So you just want to focus on about this right here, so you can get a nice rhythm going, and you'll see it take shape. And you can see these fine little lines going down here. Like, if you can imagine, right where my finger is at, there is a ridge there. It peaks up and peaks down, and I can see that standing above it. So I can hit that with the sander. If I just touch that sander on the side and drag it down, you'll see it disappear. Or if you're pressing it too hard, you'll create two of them, because it'll be like this. So easy on the pressure, and let's see how it goes. Music, please. Yeah, we're getting it down. You can see that it's a lot more smooth. After this, we're gonna use the random orbital sander to fine tune all those lines and get these really heavy, coarse marks with the 24 grit in there. You can see they're really heavy, and you can feel it. It's really textured. So we'll get that down a lot more. And but one thing I want to show you is how to fine tune this right here a little bit more and shave these down. And there's a technique that I use that I just rotate it, and it cups that, and it removes all that wood out of there, and it's really nice looking. Yeah, let me do some grinding for you. this is where I went past. You can see that the angle is going to be off a little bit. Okay, we are back. I went ahead and sanded it without you. I'm sorry. I should have included you in on the sanding. I should have invited you over to have you sand for me, but I went ahead and took care of it. So I just got that, I think it was 60 grit, and I put it on the random orbital sander, and I just went back and forth on it. If you go back and forth sideways motions like this, you'll take out any high spot, opposed to if you're going with the grain up and down, you just might stay in the flat and not really focus on the peak. So side to side, the more and more, you'll start seeing all these lines disappear. Now you don't have to get all these lines out. If you just make everything uniform, it looks good. If you focus on one and you sand it clear up to 180 grit and you go to stain all these, you're gonna have one that looks completely different. So just try to keep whatever you do uniform. So we're going to mark these lines here a little bit deeper. So like on the flat up here, it is 1/2 inch. You saw me do that with the circular saw. I took the circular saw and I cut all these lines on the flat, which you saw. Now we're going to get in between them. And it's nice to have somebody turn that for you as you focus on keeping the saw flat and square and 90 and all that. So I got my lovely assistant here, Mr. Papa Coon. And he's gonna spin this. He's my work mule. He's the lathe fella. Okay, let me get this started in there, back and forth, and then watch that right there. Cool. And then once it gets so far, it'll just drop down onto this board that I have clamped on here, and it won't saw any deeper. So that's good, right? Next step, last step before we wrap it with paper, is to cut this top one. We can't use that last saw that I had because of this high spot right here. So we just mark a quick line on the saw and we just try to go to that. And once again, this should be pretty good. Okay, so once again, we're back here at the paper, 15 degrees. Start your line, 4-inch increments is what we chose here. So I marked one of the bays that you see with blue tape, and that's what you're going to focus on when you wrap it. Those are got to line up, and you'll see how many are in between when I wrap that around. So let's give it a shot here, Jim. Take that side. Two ribs make up this whole thing, so we're gonna have not such a steep line on this post. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create 3 ribs so that it will skip not just every other one, it'll skip 2, and then this blue line will come back and it'll hit up here. So we'll have 2 empty ones in between the blue. Okay, so a few things here as Jody pans in here a little bit, you can see that these lines are not touching. You know, that's off a strong 1/16 of an inch. You know, for piano builders, that would probably drive you nuts. But for, you know, chainsaw artists, that's awesome. So we're going in between those two, and we're just gonna get it there. Because look down right here, it's even closer. Whoops, I just moved it. So up here, it's right on the money. Pretty close. Okay, so now at this point we need to transfer these lines down onto the product. Pull saw seems to work really nice. Japanese pull saw, this one looks pretty haggard, but it's amazing how they hold up. So what we're gonna do here is when we cut this, we're gonna keep this saw pretty much in a plumb line from the center of this post. So we want to stay up here. We don't want to be down here at this angle because it would really change the whole angle. As you can see, you would need to be shifted over. So we want to stay in this line. But when we cut, we want to just stay on top. So all we're doing is going down just to see where it's scoring the wood, and we can move on. So let me get it started here. Okay, so after that third cut, you don't have to tape it again. So this right here would be your finish time of using that paper.
That's okay.
Okay, so at this point here, we're gonna spin it a good bit, and we're gonna cut 1/2-inch groove in all of these score marks that we did with the pull saw. But before we start spinning it again, tap on the ends and make sure the ends are nice and solid and they're not working themselves out. So now I'm going to focus on cutting about 8 or so inches on each of these ends just so I can get them started, and then I'll start walking down the spiral with the circular saw to the end. All right, music please. Pretty difficult task to make perfect. I mean, it's really a rough thing right here. I hold the blade back and I set that right down on. When I set it down on, I need to get this, basically I need to get this nut in plumb with the center of this log. If I set this on there, if you can imagine, I hold it this way. You can get back down, look at me from right over here. So if I set that down on this way, you can see if I shift back, I don't get the full potential of the depth of the cut. So you want to make sure that you're dead plumb on top of this log as your assistant spins the thing. Rather difficult, you'll hear it winding and stuff. If you're getting off track, just lift the saw up and then get out of there and send for help. One thing I was thinking of the other day to help this process so you don't have to eyeball it, a compass makes it kind of nice, so now you can kind of get an idea of where to start that chamfer. So when you set your chisel in there, you're gonna start about that line right there. Might be a little bit much, but you get the idea. On both sides. I'm sorry, let me go ahead and do a couple more of these so we're gonna take out each side of that with the chisel and the hammer. Okay, once again, please don't ridicule me too much with the hammer to the chisel, but they've held up pretty good, so we're gonna stick with it. And I don't have anything else sharp enough to do this. So just line it up, give it a couple whacks, and aim that chisel down towards that cut that you made down there. So that bottom should line up with that down there. Hello, this is Don Ketchum, Ketchum's Creations, down here in Pueblo, Colorado. Thank you for taking the time to check out my wood butchering video on Ketchum's Creations YouTube channel. Hope it's gonna bring a lot more videos and instructions and destructions and butchering things. So stay tuned, and thanks for being.